Brian Vike and I will be right back with you. All right, we're back. I'm going to make that into a longer piece. I keep listening to these very interesting cosmic pieces of music and going out there. Does it sound good to you, Todd?
It sounds awesome. It's eerie music.
Yeah. Well, you've had kind of an eerie life, and again, it seems to me, if I had to handicap this thing, Brian, I would say that Todd is probably very well known among a bunch of different, or a number of different visitors. And
I would say, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's just not like, well, I've had the same encounter with the same people since I was 3, and, they're,
right.
Which we've heard too. He's had such a panoply of experiences. It's just remarkable. Go ahead, Todd, please.
Okay, I'm going to talk about when I had an awakening sort of. Some memories came flowing back to me in regards to being on board the craft. I had a back injury from a work-related injury, and I used to do a lot of meditation to help alleviate the pain and the frustrations, and it was years of therapy and such, going through pain, living in pain every day, and to this day I still have pain, but I learned to harness it with my mind and kind of alleviate some of the pain. I'm really not one for taking pills and painkillers and that. I don't like them, so I try and stay clear of them. So one night I was relaxing and clearing my mind and getting into meditation. I had my heartbeat slowed down and my blood flowed down, and I was to the point where I needed to be when all of a sudden I had all these memories come flooding in, and it shocked me out of my calm state, and it really just, it scared me to reality that I had not really known before that. I remember being on board a craft with what many call the Greys, the shorter species of
Sure.
extraterrestrials with larger heads.
Mm-hmm.
My memories started up at a point where I had already been on the craft for some time, and for whatever reason I was there for, it was past already. But I found myself sitting on the floor in a circular room. The entire room wasn't lit up very bright. It was an ambient type of light, but there was no source for the light at all. There was no light bulbs or anything in the ceiling or wall or anything that I could see. But I was sitting there with my back to the wall, and I was naked. I had my knees pulled up to my chest and my arms wrapped around my legs, and my face was pressed into my knees. I looked up, and what I saw standing there were 4 beings. They were short, very skinny, with very large heads compared to their bodies, and their fingers were very long compared to their bodies, too. They had very large, dark eyes, and looking at them, I could almost stare into their soulless lives. They're not like us at all. That's all I have to say about when you're with them, you end up in their mind. They end up in your mind. And
is it a pleasant thing? Is it interesting? Is it intrusive? Is it irritating?
It's intrusive, certainly. Somebody's in your mind, and you never invited them in to begin with.
And there's nothing really pleasant, like they're not telling jokes and saying, hey,
no, I mean, it's the entire they're alien. They're called alien for a reason. They are nothing like us, and even their minds are nothing like us at all. I mean, we're emotion. They seem to be emotionless, you know. Anyway, I was sitting there, and I knew they were done with me. They couldn't care less about me being there as I was sitting there watching them. And the impression I got was the way we would look upon a fly on the wall in the room while we work is how they looked upon me while I was sitting there. I just wanted them gone. I didn't want to be there anymore. I didn't want them to touch me. I didn't want to have anything to do with them. I knew it wasn't right being there. And none of it that I'd ever been told or talked about by people that I know of authority, my parents, religious people, science, governments, they all said that these beings are not real and don't exist yet. I was sitting there in a room that has been all my life to believe didn't exist. So, I was sitting there. Sorry?
I say it's an eye-opener for sure. Now, you when you stand up and that, you got a, I guess, a little bit to look around that room or the inside the craft?
Yeah, the inside of the room appeared to be about 30 feet across. There was a console, or sort of a console, and it wasn't very high, probably around 3 feet off of the floor. There were 4 grays that were standing around it, and they seemed pretty preoccupied with whatever they were doing. I knew that there was an examination table in the same room, and it was no longer visible there. It becomes part of the craft when it's not in use. I don't know how I know that, because I don't remember ever being on it, but I knew it was there, and it was now gone. I would probably assume the same for their control panel or console or whatever. It probably becomes part of the ship when it's not in use, but the details in the interior are still pretty clear. It was probably around 23 degrees Celsius inside of there. The room was made of some sort of metal or something like that. It wasn't cold to touch, but it was a dark blue and almost appeared pearl-like when looking at it from when you were moving and looking at it. It was nothing like I'd ever seen before.
Was it sparsely furnished, as it were, or were there lots of things in there?
No, it was pretty much empty. There was nothing around at all.
Wow.
Except for what I had mentioned in the middle with the grays standing around.
Weird.
Yeah, I would guess that everything becomes part of the ship when it's not in use. See, the entire room was very strange. It was a round room, but the ceiling and the wall and the floor, they were all curved and they flowed into each other. It was like being in a flattened bubble, if you know what I mean. It was a squished bubble.
Yep,
there was no separation to the walls or the ceiling or the floor. And as I said, everything flowed into each other. No corners, no edges at all. Everything was smooth. There was no sharp edges at all. No seams, no anything.
No seams, no 2x4s nailed into the roof, nothing.
No, nothing at all. It was a very smooth surface.
No chairs, no benches, nothing. Just bizarre.
That console in the middle, and that was it.
Was somebody at the console?
Sorry?
Was one of them at the console working it?
There were 4 of them standing at it.
Were they doing things with it?
They were doing things, yep. And they were moving around. They were preoccupied with whatever they were doing, I know that, and their concern with me was well past. And I just didn't want to be sitting there anymore. I knew they were done with me, and I wanted to get out.
And
anyway,
they must have read your thoughts. Did they respond to them?
Yeah, pretty much, I think. I put my head back down on my knees and pulled my knees closer to my chest, and I cried, and all I wanted to do was get out. I didn't want to see them